I was never an athlete, but I've honestly learned how to love exercise over the years. If you told me when I was in high school that one day I would be, loving exercise, passionate about it, and I'd even have a YouTube channel trying to get other people to fall in love with their fitness journey, I would think that was actually crazy because I had never exercised when I was in high school. And so, in this video, I want it to be a bit more personal, where I just share my journey in fitness myself, and not really give you like a blueprint because I think everyone's experiences is different, but just more share my experiences, and if that helps you, then that would be really awesome. Um, I realize I've done about 10 videos now for a couple months, but I don't think I've really shared just why I'm, excited about this mission. And generally, I try not to share too much about my life because my goal here is to provide value to you. Um, but in this regard, sharing my experiences, I think could be valuable. And so, yeah, just, a quick disclaimer out of the way is that, again, this is not meant to be a blueprint for your life. I can't speak for your experiences. There are definitely also like privileges I've had in my life. Just I've never had any, financial barriers to being able to afford, gym equipment, afford a gym membership, have access to things that make it easier to exercise. And then just, also just being able to enter the gym, just being a dude, it's like, just being a guy, it's a bit easier to kind of go into these spaces and feel welcome and feel less intimidated and feel like actively encouraged. So that's why, and there's probably other privileges. Long list. I'm able-bodied and I don't have really any health conditions right now. That kind of made it easier. So again, that's why this isn't like just because I did it, you can too. It's never meant to be lectury or preachy. Just genuinely sharing my experiences, but I just want to say, like, in no way should this video make you feel like, don't compare yourself to me or don't feel bad about yourself. Just sharing my story, and if it helps you, that's great. So it's gonna sound kind of funny, but I guess I'll split up my life or fitness journey in a few different chapters to kind of hopefully tell a interesting enough story. So I would say chapter 1 is me just not being interested in exercise at all. So yeah, as most kids do, I got signed up for a lot of different sports, and usually kids find, you try out like 5 or 6 different sports, and usually kids gravitate towards one sport and they're really excited about it. Um, you know, I feel bad for my parents. I just didn't like any sports. So I think even during like soccer games, I would pretend to be like a wizard and like cast spells just to like entertain myself during during soccer, because I literally didn't want to play. So I'd be like, all right, I'm just pretend to be, in Harry Potter. Like that's how much of a nerd, not athlete I was. Um, and yeah, I other than probably hiking, which is pretty much just like walking uphill and like going on going on walks, I really actually did not like any type of exercise. I wanted to play video games, watch movies, watch TV, watch TV. Yeah, just a lot of like more nerdy interests. Listen to music. I was really big into listening to music growing up. I mean, still am, but especially growing up, it was hard to catch me without headphones or without my Game Boy. So yeah, just like pretty textbook nerd. And yeah, like hated going to PE. Just had zero interest in exercise. I think if I try to remember why, I guess I think it started with me just having no natural interest in sports. So then that kind of like took out that whole activity where, if you naturally gravitate to a type of sport, you're like naturally getting exercise. Because I didn't like any sports, that was left out. And then I think like personal exercise, it's like, I don't know, I didn't have any incentive to go on my own as like a, 13 or 14-year-old kid for like runs and things like that. But even, I guess, more than that, just like I literally did not see any benefit for it. I mean, I was also like, I was a kid, so I wasn't that, and I was a kid without any health issues, so I wasn't that actively concerned about like my health, or like, that wasn't a priority as like a 14-year-old kid. I just wanted to like, you know, do the things I enjoyed and hang out with my friends. And I didn't really, I guess, know that it could be kind of like a personal experience or anything like that. Yeah, like another interesting anecdote, I had to sign up for like cross country in high school, because there's like a sport requirement in high school to get out of PE. And like I generally did like running. So even when I say I had to, it was like, I did enjoy running a bit more than other things because I guess it wasn't like sport related, but I still didn't like that organized cross country. I think being in like, compared to other people and all of that, like I just didn't enjoy that. So sometimes I would even, when we would go on our cross country runs, because I lived walking distance from the school, I would like run home, play video games for like an hour, and then like to kind of time it out when I knew people would start running back and kind of sneak and join them. So just to give another anecdote of how much I didn't, enjoy exercising. And yeah, funny enough, I actually think I enjoyed running when it was more of a solo thing, but as soon as it was kind of in a sport environment like cross country, I think maybe because I was slower, or like I just naturally didn't have that competitive energy in me, or that sports kind of culture in me. It kind of took some of the joy out for me. So yeah, that just to paint a picture of like, I had zero interest in exercise, I think because I thought of it more in terms of like sports culture, even some of the personal like workouts like running or weightlifting. And so because I didn't have that like competitive nature, that like athlete kind of mindset, it just had no interest to me. And then I, didn't have any interest in like bettering my health. Like it just wasn't like a mindset. So pretty much up until 17 or so, I just had no interest in like movement. Yeah, pretty sedentary kid. And so that kind of shifts to chapter 2 of starting to exercise, but for the wrong reasons. And yeah, I would say, again, another disclaimer when I'm saying wrong reasons, I'm not saying these are objectively wrong or objectively right. Just saying that they're wrong for me. Probably not the best way to go about it for just in my own personal journey. And so I would say for the wrong reasons, in that I was quite insecure about being like very skinny as a guy. And I started to get like, as I got older, I started to get like a bit more like made fun of for that. And so, as most people, if they have an insecurity, like trying to tackle it head on. But that's not inherently wrong, but I think I went into working out with kind of this mindset that like something was wrong with me, or I had to like fix something in me, so that like people might like have a better opinion of me or like me more. So, I didn't really think about like fun or like what exercises would feel good. Just kind of mainly focused on like, all right, what exercise do I need to do to like put on, this amount of weight or this amount of muscle? And it like became less about health. It was just like, then I would just try to like eat as much as possible. It didn't even matter what I was eating, like just to like get more calories in. So like the whole experience was very, like it didn't really have like a joyous component to it. It was like frantically researching all the exercises to do that would like build the most muscle, trying to do them as much as possible, and then trying to like eat as much as possible. And interestingly enough though, as I was doing it, I would notice like in parallel that like outside of any like, weight improvements for my goals, I was enjoying doing these like movements. I was like, oh, this is kind of fun. Like I get to listen to I love listening to music. So it's like, with sports, I couldn't listen to music on my own, but it's like, oh, I can actually listen to music and kind of have that introverted part of my brain. And then, I tried this movement and it kind of feels good to like do it, to be like, oh, whoa, that actually like exerted some energy and I feel like good about myself getting like a weight from point A to point B. And specifically, I forget if I mentioned, like when I got into it, I was going to the gym for the first time at like 17, 18. And so in parallel, I was kind of finding that I would be enjoying some of these movements more than expected. And then especially when I would get like stronger in a movement or learn a new movement, it would feel kind of cool. Like I felt like, oh, my brain's almost expanding. Like I'm getting, or like my, not even like I'm getting stronger, which is like different than like looking different. So I would feel some kind of like a self-improvement feeling of like, oh, I'm getting like better at this thing. And so that's where like the feeling of like self-improvement or self-efficacy, which I've talked about in other videos, of like, oh, I'm actually getting like better at this thing, which was actually a really cool feeling. But I think that was kind of more in the back of my brain. But what definitely was front was like, I want to kind of get over this insecurity. And, people might have different philosophies, but I think, if you're trying to improve something in a way because you're deeply insecure about something, just kind of tackling the superficial aspect of the insecurity is not really going to fix the problem. It's kind of more like a band-aid, because, if you're really insecure about X and you are like superficially solve it with Y, and you get the kind of cover up, internally you still feel like that insecurity remains, because it's not really about the thing. Like we're all insecure about different things. Like no one lives without insecurities, but it's really like there's some kind of internal thing within you that hasn't been clicked. Like there's a sense that you are not enough internally. And if you get the external thing, it's not, can be such a deep feeling that it's not really gonna just click that into place. It might scratch that itch a bit, but when you're insecure about something on some level, regardless of if it's, career, relationships, physical attributes, personality, some level of self-acceptance can go a longer way than trying to just self-improve your way out of it. And this is very nuanced. And I think there's like a tricky balance between self-improvement and self-acceptance. And so I'm not against self-improvement. If I was against it, I wouldn't even make this channel. But I think the difference is, does that self-improvement come from a place of self-love or from a place of like self-hate or shame? And, those are strong words. You can even just substitute that with like insecurity, it doesn't have to be like self-hate, because that's strong. But for some people, it could feel like that. And so, the idea that like you are enough, but I want to kind of continue to improve on myself because I like aspects about myself. I just want to like get better at these things, versus like, oh, I'm literally not enough, so I need to like hit this goal and then I'll be enough. That doesn't work, unfortunately, for like, happiness. And sorry if this is getting too philosophical, but I think, any fitness journey or self-improvement journey is going to have philosophy baked in. I don't think it exists in a vacuum. So to kind of get back to the main thing is that the idea of like starting to enjoy these movements was more in the back, because I was so focused on like, I wanted to gain a certain amount of muscle or get to gain a certain amount of weight, so to feel better. And so that was kind of a, from like age 17 to, I would say, like 25 was kind of that mindset. So, a long time. And obviously, as I was lifting weights, I was starting to see those superficial goals of like, oh, cool, I'm at these new weight goals. And, it would feel good in some ways, but then, I would find like that it still was like, because it was kind of more of that childhood insecurity, it would still kind of like linger there for a bit. And it was like, I reached a point where I was like, oh, no amount of weight or muscle gain is going to make me necessarily just like feel better about myself. Like I have to just, feel good about myself regardless. And so that was kind of something I was learning. And then in parallel, I was just kind of finding that it was emotionally exhausting approaching an activity from a place of insecurity, being like, oh, I need to get this workout because, I might lose muscle, or I need to get this workout in because, I want to continue to get to this goal. And even the exercise selection, I would kind of think like, oh, this exercise is fun, but like, is that actually the most optimal for my goals of weight gain and muscle gain? And it's like, I would remove exercises that weren't fun. And like, what a sad way to approach activity. Like, imagine if you had a favorite sport and then you didn't do it because it wasn't, you know, the best sport to like get bigger shoulders. Like, that would just feel like, oh, then like, what are you doing this for? What's the point? And so, yeah, I would say for about 8 years, while there was some joy I was gaining from this movement and this new hobby, I think focusing on it for the wrong reasons, this kind of superficial weight gain goal, for me just made it such a emotionally fraught experience where I felt like I was trying to tackle an insecurity that really couldn't be tackled externally. And over time, I actually started to like kind of resent this activity because I was like, oh, this just kind of, I'm just almost like chasing this like ghost in a way of like, oh, I'm never gonna just be like 100% happy with, the amount of muscle I have or the weight gain I've gotten. And then I'm choosing exercises that I don't like just to hit that. So it's like, I'm not really excited about the goal, not really excited about the path to get to the goal. And then it's such an emotionally fraught experience that it just started to become a really negative experience slowly. And that sense of joy of the movement, that kind of became even less and less. And just, I feel like my fitness journey was more tied around this insecurity that I had when I was like 16 years old. And now I'm like, I hit a point where I was like 25 and it just felt silly. But it kind of made me resent, lifting weights in general because I'd now associated it with just like trying to tackle this insecurity. And then that kind of takes me to chapter 2.5, I want to call it, where I actually took a 1-year break from weightlifting, or 6 months, 9 months, I forget exactly. And, it wasn't so conscious. It wasn't like, I'm going to take a 1-year break. I just like literally was like, I'm so sick of weightlifting. I don't like it anymore because of all the reasons I mentioned. But at that point, because of what I had mentioned of like that joy of movement and that joy of self-improvement, I still felt like, oh, well, I want to do some type of movement. Just naturally, I think by that point it had baked into me that like movement and some type of exercise was just like a, part of my life. So going back to the title of the video, how I learned to love exercise, even just doing the movement gained a little bit of like for exercise of just like, oh, this is something I like to do. So actually that's when I decided to like sign up for a half marathon, in part because, it was so contrast to some of the like insecurities I had. And it just seemed just so different from like being inside a gym. And over that, 6-month period of training for the half marathon, it was really fascinating because I wasn't as focused. I had no like weight goals or body goals. It was just like, oh, I just want to like be able to complete the half marathon without walking. Which I eventually did. And like, you can't just, some people can, but I'm not a naturally athletic person. So I couldn't just wake up and do a half marathon without training. So I had to follow like a structured training plan for a complete running beginner, because even though I was like weightlifting, I wasn't doing, much running during that time. So, I had to kind of go on this like very sustainable training plan. And the goal was just to finish the run. And what I found with like general running culture, especially compared to weightlifting culture, is that it's just much less shame focused than weightlifting. I find that a lot of times runners will always be like, run at your own pace, don't compare yourself to others, don't over focus on your form, like just, do what feels good for your body. If you ran 10 minutes today, that's incredible. If you, did a 15-minute mile versus a 10-minute mile versus a 6-minute mile, again, that's awesome. So it's like a very supportive kind of energy, I would say, in the running community is what I found. And then, yeah, it's just a lot of fun. You're focused on like finding different routes, listening to fun music, maybe talking to friends. So like the whole running experience was a really enjoyable one. And so by the time I finished the half marathon, I was like, wow, that was a really positive experience. I think it kind of like healed a bit of an enjoyment of exercise with me. But for me, I think what I realized was like, oh, I actually really enjoy weightlifting and I had missed it. So that kind of takes me to chapter 3, which is starting to exercise for the right reasons. And again, right reasons for me. And so it was this thing where I was like, well, I did weightlifting for like 8 years and it kind of came from not the best mindsets. And I just did this like half marathon, 6 months to a year of running. And that felt like such a more positive experience. But it's like, oh, I had this kind of thought of like, why can't I take the good vibes and good values of the running community and bring that into the lifting? I mean, at that point, it wasn't the lifting community. I just had to figure out for myself first. So I was just trying to bring that good vibes internally. And so, I thought about, what was so good about running? And I don't even know if I could put the words to it then, but now I can look back and I'm like, the running community was focused on having fun with your runs. It's focused on a sustainable run. Like no one's going to tell you to run every day. They're going to tell you to like start with 2 to 3 times a week, build your way up, build your mileage slowly. And yeah, again, shame-free. Like this idea of like, even the race I did, the tagline was like, run your race, which is very powerful. Like don't compare yourself to others. So very shame-free. And, but I find with lifting, doesn't really have those values. People are very focused on, so I just actually did a video called Your Fitness Journey Should Feel Good, which is all about, the values I tend to find in the lifting community and my values. So I won't, if you want to see that, watch that video. But just to like do a quick summary was that I felt like lifting culture was very like overly serious, not fun, overly intense, not sustainable, and very like shame motivated, which was kind of, my experience, from 17 to 25. And so I kind of was like, let me literally start this lifting journey from scratch and kind of approach it differently. And that's when I started doing, finding like the kettlebell, which was like focused on a lot more like fun, dynamic movements. I started picking exercises for fun. So I started getting really into kettlebell carries where I just like walk around with kettlebells and different weights, different lengths, different ways to hold it. Just like trying to have more fun with it and not really worrying if it was going to be the best for like muscle gain or strength or whatever. And then I started not like pushing myself so hard at the gym. I started doing moderate workouts, making sure I took rest breaks. And then I just started comparing myself less to others and just, was focused on like, all right, what's my journey going to look like? And at this point, I'm like 27, 28. And so I'm, like, oh, I don't need to hold on to some, teenage insecurity. I'm getting older, be 30 soon. And so, I kind of had like an epiphany. I remember one day being like, oh, my life has so much more things going on and great things like, career and family and, hobbies. And it's like, I want this part of my life, weightlifting, to be a really enjoyable experience. So yeah, I started focusing on fun, sustainability, and a shame-free experience. So for me, that looked like finding the kettlebell and finding really fun exercises with that. I think the kettlebell community, while it can have its own problems too, can be a lot more focused on fun. And I didn't really get deep into that community, but I just found like that the kettlebell tool was a little bit less focused on maximum muscle gain and maximum strength. But I think that being said, I think you can use any tool in the gym and approach. It's about a mindset. It's about these values. So you can do anything. I just found that like for me, it was such a nice change starting to use the kettlebell more. I think it almost created like a bit of a more concrete reset where I'm like, I'm going to even approach the exercise I do differently. But you could do the same exercise and approach it with the wrong values versus the right values. Even something as simple as like a bicep curl, you can approach it as like, I'm insecure about the size of my arms, to, oh, it's really fun to be able to like pick up this dumbbell with my arm. And, it's probably going to make it easier to like, hold groceries like this if I need to hold it like this, or, if I have like a nephew or a niece or kids one day, it's like I can hold my baby like this a little easier, like pick it up like this. The same exercise, you can have a totally different mindset. So yeah, for me, I started focusing on, fun exercises. I started doing kettlebell carries, kettlebell clean and press. They were super fun. I started making it sustainable. I only did like 2 or 3 workouts a week and, 20, 30 minutes. And I was actually like not feeling burnt out after a few months, feeling energized to kind of keep going. And yeah, I stopped comparing myself to others. I'm like, all right, I'm almost 30. I'm, gonna just do workouts my way and have fun with that. And I'm not gonna listen if anyone tells me that I'm doing my workout the wrong way. Because unless I'm about to injure myself, then like, what's the wrong way to do your movement, Um, and I'm not gonna really care if someone tells me my workouts are like not optimal, or I could be doing better with this thing, because people don't really know your goals. So I just started, and then I started approaching of like, oh, even how I looked at my body, I'm not thinking like how much muscle I have or how much weight, but just almost from a sense of like gratitude of like, whoa, it's cool that my body can do these movements, and thinking more about like performance than aesthetic. So just being like, whoa, okay, like let me get better at my kettlebell clean and presses, be able to either use more weight or get better with the form, or have more energy when doing it, like not feeling as like tired by the end of a workout, or not feeling my cardio is pretty good for the workout, being able to do the kettlebell carries better and things like that. And so I started just focusing on like what my body can do as opposed to what it looks like. And was that shift where it was like, I think I really love exercise now. It's just this very joyous experience. I do my favorite exercises, I do them sustainably, and I do them for me. And I reached a point where I was like, I really love exercise now. Like, it just feels like a joyous thing. It feels like one of the biggest joys I have in my life. And it's really like a big part of me now. And then, and it's not because I followed the best exercises. I followed the best exercises and the best routine for me. And that's why even in my like practical advice videos, I always emphasize like, this is just what works out for me. You should find what works out for you. Even in my video where I say you only need 2 exercises, I very purposely titled it that, as opposed to like the best 2 exercises, because these are the best 2 exercises for me. But in that video, I talk about like why I picked those exercises, what values I had to pick those exercises, what goals I had. And I say like, you need to find your favorite 2 exercises. So yeah, those values, fun, sustainability, shame-free, I brought that from what I saw in running. I brought that to lifting, and I found something that really brings me joy. And that's how I learned to love exercise. And I guess final chapter 4, the future, then I thought, okay, I really feel like I found kind of like a joyous experience with exercise. And I looked around and I just felt, both statistically, if you look at the stats, and just in my life, a lot of people just feel really bad about their fitness journey. So I thought, I don't think anything's super special about me. I think I kind of just took a more gentle, empathetic, maybe even like therapy-minded, I'm not a therapist, but like kind of like a therapeutic mindset towards fitness. And I was like, I kind of want to talk about that more and see, can that help others, just share my experiences. And then, obviously I'm still going to continue to work on these values myself. I can find myself, this isn't like, so picture perfect. I can still find myself sometimes my mindset going to more of the wrong reasons for me. And so I kind of continue to work on that. Like, so all the things I talk about on my channel are things that like I'm also reminding myself of. And so, remembering those 3 values to kind of keep my workout routine. So moving forward, I want to keep remembering these lessons to keep loving exercise. And I want to hopefully help people when they watch these videos. I don't think I'm like, have anything special, like I mentioned. I think my mindset feels good. I can feel confident that I think my mindset feels good about my fitness journey. And so if I can help other people with theirs, that would be awesome. So that's kind of my experience on how I learned to love exercise. Would love to hear, if you feel like you've hit that, like you really love exercise, I would love to hear what's made you love it. Even, share your story in the comments. If you're struggling with loving exercise, let me know if this video helped you, and just share your thoughts, and share your struggles too. I hope my comment section can be like a safe space for people to share. And then a bit of a tangent, but I feel like one video series idea would be like, eventually, I'm still figuring out, but I would like to do more interviews on this channel. Like not make it an interview channel, but like once a month or something, have like an interview. But I was trying to figure out what that would look like. But I think this could be a format where I just ask people to just share their story of how they learned to love exercise. And you know, none of it's preachy, but just like you just keep hearing different stories. I think that would also inspire me, which would be really cool. And so let me know also what you think about that idea. Yeah, and as always, I'm gonna do the YouTuber thing. Subscribe and share if you found this valuable. Really hoping to hit 1K subscribers this year, and you know, subscribing and liking, commenting, sharing, all of that really helps just spread this, you know, hopefully positive message, and allows me to, you know, stay motivated on, you know, kind of this YouTuber journey. So yeah, it helps me a lot to subscribe, and hopefully helps you too to keep getting these videos. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. If you want to see another video, check this one out here, and I'll see you for the next one.